Hello, everybody. Welcome to the WYSB show, podcast, interview, whatever you'd like to call it. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Alexa Johns, who writes for the blog, obviously, and is a very, very good singer songwriter. Lex, we're going to start the show. Generally speaking, how these things go is when these podcasts happen, they start with pleasantries. How are you doing today? Very basic questions.
Yes.
If you don't have anything particularly interesting in response to how are you doing today, do you?
What do you mean, do I? Like,
So
do
do
I have
you have
something
anything?
interesting to say
Yeah,
to
anything
our,
special going on?
well, I have a 1.5-year-old and things can be like a whirlwind. You have plans and then you have blowouts that happen. So then everything just revolves around getting the diaper in the trash can. So other than that, I mean, that's probably TMI, but other than that, I'm doing great. I
Yes,
usually
I
like to
know.
meditate before things, but it just didn't happen today. So it's all good.
Sure, sure. And we'll talk about that. I think your practices and spirituality and meditation, I think is crucial to serenity and peace. But Lex, I think we're gonna start the show off hot, right? Like an episode of
Cool.
Ozark. Okay, so
Okay.
one of
Which
the
I'm
things that
watching again right now. It's
say
good.
again
I said, which I'm watching that show again right now for the second time.
is good, isn't it? I love me
It's
some
so
Jason
good.
Bateman.
It's good.
Okay, Lex. One of the things I find most peculiar is where you have mothers out there who have obviously have given birth to a son or daughter,
Hmm.
and they seem so adamantly pro-abortion or pro-choice. I think there might be a difference between the two, but it seems like seems like more pro-abortion than anything else. Now, I guess I wanted to ask you, as a mother,
Hmm.
do you err on one side or the other where it's pro-choice or pro-life, and also did your opinion or did your take change before or after motherhood?
Well, I would say I do have a definite choice on the whole, where I stand on things. But my response to it is actually probably different than a lot of other people's. While being a mom, I can't imagine having to make that decision now, especially after knowing the love and joy that comes with having a baby. I can't imagine being put in that position where you have to choose that. But at the same time, I can't imagine not having that choice. And so, for me, being a citizen of America, I just feel personally that I personally feel like it is our freedom to have freedom. And that's not, I mean, where I stand on it, aside from what people decide, I choose what's best for them. I know what's best for me in my own life, but I think it goes back further than that. I think to even get to that point, there's a problem because where it really stems from is sex education in our schools, and really where the link is still happening between church and state. And I am, all for whatever people want to believe and study in their home religiously and whatnot. But to use that as a reason not to educate young girls about what their bodies do and how they work and when you're ovulating and how you can get pregnant and how to, make sure you don't. I think that's where the hindrance is in our society. I really think that if we could have a better sex education program, this wouldn't be such a hot button. Does that make sense?
I think it does, and ultimately, I agree with you. It's the only, I guess, the reason why I find it peculiar is because if there's a mother who is pro-abortion, let's say, it just strikes me as odd that so given another set of circumstances, you would choose to not have the child that has brought joy. So it's just kind of it's peculiar to me, but ultimately I agree, and I think it's so here's ultimately in the end I'm pro-choice. I believe everybody should have that the choice to do so, and the reason being is I think so. Okay, there's all this dialogue out there about free speech, and but
Mhm.
what I think what we've done with free speech is if we opened up this discourse, we opened up this dialogue to try and come up with an answer that doesn't come by way of discussion. And what I think the the reason I think that I'm pro-choice is because we might have any sort of belief or idea or opinion that we may have before life experience will
Mhm.
inevitably be challenged by the universe or God, which to any atheists or gnostics out there is the same thing. But any idea or belief will be challenged. And two things can either happen when that opportunity comes is, well, that belief will be confirmed or it will change. So
Mhm.
I totally uh I don't want to deny anybody that life experience.
Right. Well, and on that note, I mean, I don't know that my opinions changed before having Gracie versus after, but I will say that I if I was to have to make that decision now, there's no way in hell I'd be able to go through with an abortion at this point in my life. But at the same time, I'm in a different situation than a lot of people are out there, and motherhood is fucking hard. Like it's a lot. It's expensive. It's all consuming. It's messy. It's work. It's a lot of that stuff. And I just personally, I can't imagine having to make that decision from, you know, another side of the tracks. And that's why for me, I have a sense of, I think, just expanded compassion, because I don't know what someone's circumstances would be to make them need that decision happen in their life. But the fact that it's not available, that's the part that's upsetting for me, especially after hearing like about that story about the young girl who was raped and she's 8 years old, and that being an issue. I don't think there should be an issue with that. I think she's a child, you know, that should not be something that she has to carry the burden of at such a young age. But um, you know, with situations like this, I have a different approach. I go into meditation a lot. I bless things from a higher state of being when I can find a place of love, because otherwise, you know, you can get into anger and into the weeds of things pretty easily. If at least I can, if I don't do that. And I always bless things and pray that there's a divine solution that comes out of everything for all involved. And I don't believe this is the final solution, but I think it's an opening for a conversation that needs to be had, and that we need to go deeper as a society and to understand what's the root of this and how can we resolve it at the basic core level, which is really pinpointing sexuality and right, just like right there, you know? So,
That's,
anyways,
you brought up I thought it was a great point about the sex education.
yeah.
It just made me prompted me to ask you the following: is that do you think that do you think that do you think there's a push these days for promiscuity, and do you think that that they should be, with that sex education, that they should be almost teaching against that?
Well, promiscuity and sex education don't have to be in the same category. Like, they really don't. We are human beings. We have bodies. We recreate through sexuality. That's literally our means, our portal for creation of life. That doesn't have to be something that's exploited, nor pornographic, nor really like disgusting in any way, shape, or form. I think society has really double-edged sword on sexuality, because in one sense it is the conduit for creation, and yet on the other sense it's exploited and it's everywhere, and it's, you know, sex sells and all these things. Sexuality, I believe, at its core nature is holy and it's divine and it's meant to be something that's sacred. And I think that we're not serving our children by enlightening them to how to protect themselves. Kids are going to experiment, explore, and do what they're going to do anyways. But if we can enable them to just have the tools and understanding, and just to even, you know, give them more options than just abstinence is the way, that's not going to be the case for every kid. That's not going to be what they grow up experiencing, especially in small towns when there's nothing to do.
Mm.
You know, so I really believe it comes down to, especially educating females, young girls. I mean, even I can't even tell you how many women my age don't even know how many days a month you can get pregnant. Like, it's during one time of your
Mm.
cycle. Like, that's it. There are a lot of people that don't understand their own bodies, that there's just such a disconnect. There's like an overexposure to sexuality, yet there's an individual disconnect. And I think it's rooted in shame at its core, because society sends two messages, you know, sex sells, and don't do it or you're bad, or you're this or you're that, or and all the labels that come with it. And really, sex can be empowering if you can be self-empowered through it and not have to exploit yourself or use that as a tool to degrade yourself, but to understand that it's an energy, it's a power within you that you can capitalize on, and you can let it be a creative force in your life for good in all other areas of your life. It doesn't have to be so shameful, you
Sure,
know?
That's very good. And I suppose I simplified it with tying sex education and promiscuity. I guess what I meant by promiscuity is casual sex. And I guess I think that maybe because you also mentioned the root of it. And truth, I don't know what the root of it is. I suspect casual sex has something to do with it. And I don't know that casual sex is in any way fulfilling for anybody. I guess temporarily it can be, but here's a question because it sort of ties into spirituality.
Mhm.
Somebody was talking to me. I think he was trying to explain to me what soul ties were, and he was saying that any sort of partner you have throughout your life, whether it's casual sex or temporary or whatever, a piece of you goes to that person that you just had that encounter with, which means whoever you ultimately settle down with, there's less of you that you can give to that person who you end up spending the rest of your life with. Do you subscribe to any of that at all?
I've heard different takes on that. For instance, there's remedies and practices people utilize for, say, that very reason, such as cutting. Have you heard of that before?
I
Like where you
haven't.
cut an etheric cord, meaning like if there's a connection between you that's strong, whether it started physically or whatnot, that there is some sort of spiritual cord that's in place. But that doesn't always pertain to just someone who's a sexual partner. That can pertain to your parents. That can pertain to relationships you've experienced throughout your life. Strong bonds that sometimes have toxic connections can create a sense of draining your energy because you feel connected to that person. So I have done, in my own experience, done cord cutting for relationship standpoints and just clearing out toxicity and draining relationships. I think on the sexual partners piece specifically, I can't personally speak to that because that was never my thing. I didn't have that experience, but I can attest to you that I really do believe that the act of sex and finding someone to share your everything with, it's a vulnerable experience and it requires a deep level of intimacy. And I can't say from a personal experience that this is true, but my take on it from watching certain people or friends of mine, it seems to me that when there's a higher level of sleeping around, if you will, for them, they're usually in a more guarded place in their life or processing through something or whatnot. And true lovemaking or sexuality or finding unity with someone, I believe, really comes from letting yourself be open and fully exposed on a soul level. And that's not easy to do with a stranger. I can't imagine it would be, so it makes sense that there would be a piece of you that goes with each person on an energetic level, but maybe that's also something that you have to really buy into and believe for it to be true in your experience. Because if somebody doesn't believe that, that might not be true for them, you know?
Sure. Yeah. It's what's that? Somebody said one time is that that phrase "seeing is believing," and he goes, "No, no, no, that's absolutely wrong. Believing is seeing." So
Mhm.
it's I thought that was interesting because like it's that's kind of the same thing where you've seen kings be beggars and beggars to be kings. So it's I think it goes to because you've always you've brought up to me this affirmation stuff. So if I
Mhm.
tell myself that I'm a loser enough, eventually that will manifest itself. Conversely, if I tell myself the opposite, then that will manifest itself. Right. So it's I think probably does depend on what you believe. But again, I do think that those any belief that one might have will be challenged. And I think that's the sort of the beautiful thing about life is
Mhm.
it's it doesn't matter what it is that I think. It's all based really upon experience.
Right. That's 100% true. And with affirmations, I think that they are the beginning of deconstructing a false belief. And what I view as a false belief is anything that makes you feel badly about yourself. Because from my point of view, I look at babies, I look at children, they don't feel negative emotion about themselves. They come in with confidence, they believe in themselves, they know who they are, they know they're valuable, they know they're worthy. So as adults, I think we should all challenge ourselves to look into things that we think that don't feel good. Because clearly, if something doesn't feel good, there's a misalignment that's happening. Unlike something that does. If I say, oh, I am worthy and deserving of good things, I'm a good person, I'm happy, I choose this, whatever. Those feel good to me. And I trust that that feels in alignment with my spirit or higher self or whatever you want to call that, right? But if I'm going to think thoughts of shame or negative criticisms, things like that, they don't feel good. So I look at those as like, now I get curious about them and I kind of go, huh, there's some investigating for me to do here. Why don't I feel good? And if this was true, wouldn't I align with it? Wouldn't my soul align with this if this was in resonance with me? Clearly it's not. So it's in discord. So this is like, it's kind of like that game, like one of these things isn't quite like the other. So I think that we can gauge our negative feelings to really gauge what our beliefs are. And I think that's where the fun can begin if we look at it through that lens. It's a perspective shifting, and it's really getting curious about, well, where did that belief come from? And when did I start feeling that way? Because we don't all come into this world thinking, oh, I'm a loser, or I'm this, I'm that. We take those things on because a teacher said something, a parent said something, we had a bad game, and another kid said something. And those little things that happen start to change the way we view ourselves, you know? Did my camera just go out? Because I just had a pop-up thing.
No, I think
all good. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So anyways, yeah, that's where I think positive affirmations can be a tool to help us gauge where we're at and how to get ourselves back to our whole self.
That's very good. I want to expand upon that, but if we can travel back a little bit, I remember you said something that I'm paraphrasing, but I think it was something along the lines that casual sex was not something that you've experienced or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, for me, the same. That's never something that I've practiced or have ever done. So it's kind of funny. It's like, of course, my take is casual sex is not fulfilling. So it's kind of two people that haven't had a lot of it say that people should have a lot of it. But
right. Well, and I got married pretty young and met Ty when I was pretty young. And I think had I met him like at a later point in my life, I would have wanted the younger times to really just go out there and explore and live it up. Because I really have a mindset of like, this is my life. Let's create memories. Let's create experiences. Let's fucking do it all, you know? I mean, not like, no pun intended there, but you know. Anyways.
And then one last thing before we move on, you also said something interesting that a child's natural state isn't to feel bad about themselves.
Right,
And
it's not.
All of that negative energy comes from, well, it comes externally. It comes from other people, or it comes from wherever, but it doesn't come from within initially.
Right,
So,
and it's the story we make up about the existential experiences. It's not even, I mean, you can have that's why I love, you know, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, because within a matter of 10 minutes of doing a worksheet on something you're upset about, you can have a perspective shift and entirely flip the emotional feel around what previously was causing you so much heartache, you know? So I think it's really the narrative that we put to the experience that happens. You can take it one way that makes you feel good, and you can take it another that makes you feel like shit. I now, after a lot of studying and a lot of self-work, I choose to always feel good when I can, you know?
yeah, right. There's logic in that. So I can makes me think of it makes me think that because we want to get back to that natural state that we came into the world with. So any sort of if I encounter any sort of negative energy or negative emotion, it makes me think of maybe we should retreat within, and well, that's where meditation comes in. But it also makes me think that, you know, the only correct perception is no perception. I've heard that in my in the beginning of my personal spiritual journey was I picked up Buddhism at first, and that quote stuck out to me, that no perception is correct perception. So I remember, so it's something you said made me think.
What did that mean to you though? Because that one statement can have a lot of various perspectives on it, right? So
Yes,
what
it
did that
can.
mean for you specifically?
Right. So that's I guess I'm guilty of speaking about how it should be instead of how it actually is, because that's a tough place to reach. I think it takes a lot of work to not perceive anything and just kind of see it as it is. But okay, so here's a story. Uh, you know, Casper White, right? Red hair, looked like a computer geek. However, I love the beach, but I was always insecure about going to the beach because I would be the whitest guy out there. But what flipped that? There was a sort of a psychological change, a sort of perspective change in that, well, instead of going there and being insecure about it, well, then I'm going to have a miserable time. how about instead I kind of go there and sort of flaunt it and accept that I'm the whitest person on the beach, and then it becomes
Make
sort of
it your
comical,
thing.
right?
Yeah. Make it your thing, own it, find confidence in it, and then it becomes the new trend and everyone wants your skin. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and there's something
amazing what
about that
self-ownership does.
when we can do that, it's I think it's contagious. People look at it and go, I kind of want what that person has, even though it's a flaw, so to speak.
Well, a flaw according to who? Because truthfully, you do have fantastic skin. I would consider it porcelain, not Casper white, and you have no idea what women would give to just have that kind of complexion. So, and men, I mean, people would love to have your complexion. So sometimes it just takes one person finding confidence in something, and then it literally becomes a trend. Because if you look at beauty, you look at things that are popular in, why are they in? Because one person thought they were fucking cool, and then other
Mm.
people believed them. That's it.
Right. Somebody said something the other day that they said all this the debate between glass half full, glass half empty. How about at least I have a glass? And I thought that was brilliant.
That is cool.
Yeah. Okay. So
Totally.
along the lines of spirituality, I know you have a very interesting spiritual journey dating
Yeah.
back from your days in Utah and
Uh,
Mormonism and then to where you are now. I kind of want you to take us along that is not as quickly, but obviously we don't have that much time because it would take we could fill a day with it, right? But
Probably.
so so here's a question. Growing up in Utah, I actually asked your sister about this too. With Mormonism, I think was there a falling out there? But also, is there anything that any concept or any idea that you took from Mormonism that you still use today?
Yeah. So I can definitely answer both of those pretty easily. So I guess my first falling out with Mormonism started when I was a really little kid. I was told when I went to kindergarten that I wouldn't be joined with my family in an eternal heaven because we weren't baptized. And I was told I'd go to eternal darkness and I'd be, cast out basically. And as a 6-year old who, you're trying to conceptualize death and endingness anyways, and that just seems like
Mm,
impossible, it terrified me, like beyond trauma. Like I was from then on just desperate to save my family. And I just begged my parents, like, please let us be baptized. Please let us be baptized. And my dad's answer to me was actually brilliant. Looking back, I'm very grateful now because he said, I will baptize you and I'll go back with you when you're 18. But you have to tell me why you believe in the Mormon faith and what it does to serve your life and how it makes you a better person. And he said, and I also, in the meantime, I want you to look at other religions and see if that's the right one for you. And I was, little and was like, other religions? Like what? Like what is, because we were only surrounded with Mormons. And I think, as a kid, then growing up, it became a lot more about the social pressures. For instance, kids not coming into my house because my parents drank wine and had coffee pot. When everyone turned 8 years old, there were these big birthdays that you'd have at what was called the Lion House, and I wasn't allowed in the door because I wasn't Mormon, and it felt very segregated.
mm,
And yeah, I was the only one. Like, there wasn't a sense of community really for any of us that weren't Mormon because everybody was Mormon. My only non-Mormon friend lived about 48, 50 minutes from my house. And so it was so isolating. And yet I look back and I'm kind of like, wow, there's kind of a blessing there because it really also led me to my passion with music. Music was how I connected not only with my friends, with other people, but it was a way that I could share a gift I had by writing, by telling stories, by experiencing my life and then putting it through music. And I could put that in a song and have, the mothers of these kids that previously disliked me because they thought I was a bad influence because I wasn't Mormon, all of a sudden see me through more of like a kinder, gentler, holier lens, if you will, because music had that weird crossing of barriers effect. And so that was probably my fallout, but there were blessings within it. But the things I really took away from, I guess, being raised within that community, probably our family, even though we weren't Mormon ourselves, my whole family had lived in Utah for generations and had really adopted, if you will, Mormon values. So we had dinners together every night. We didn't have like a family home evening, but we would have, time together on a allotted day where it was like games, movies, connection. And we really and I would say there was a purity to growing up in that culture. However, sometimes I laugh because I'm like, sex was so oppressed that it was also so on the forefront of all the young kids'
Oh,
mind because it was such a taboo. You know what I mean?
right.
But it was also, it was the forbidden fruit of things, if you will. And so it was, when you tell a kid, oh, don't think about a white elephant or whatever, that's all they're going to think about. So I think that it was kind of funny looking back, but it was safe. It was very safe, and it was very family oriented. And I think those are the things I took away from it that were positive.
Sure. Actually, you know what? Hold on here. I should have done this to start the show. Okay.
Oh,
Can you see it there? I don't know if you can see it, but it's on there.
I
Okay.
love that. You can
You,
see it when you turn your head a little bit. You can see it a little bit more.
here.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, there you
Okay.
go.
You would here, so you've developed a bit of a fan base with your Mother's Day story. And so a couple of people around me would so they'll ask questions and stuff, and I'll say, well, she's Alexa's very in tune with the universe and she's very spiritual. And I'll say, did I this is my no, you have to correct me if I'm wrong. I'll say I think that she believes in a supreme creator of the universe. However, I don't think she's so closed-minded that she won't take bits and pieces from other institutions or religions. And it's kind of met with uh some sort of what would you say, they want they like people to subscribe to one thing. But
Yeah,
my rebuttal to that would be, look, if there is a supreme creator of the universe, that means he created everything. That means he's responsible for all the other religions as well.
right. And aren't they all technically then rivers that lead to the same ocean?
That's from my experience picking up Buddhism first. Now it led me to other places, but there's still things, there's still concepts, there's still ideas and practices that I can still use and incorporate with another one. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't suspect that the supreme creator of the universe had would put these things out there or be responsible for things that are ultimately in the end destructive. Now, um, I don't know. I believe it's probably well. Here's the question, because your dad said feel free to go explore other religions.
Yeah, he wanted me to, for sure.
Did you? And what did you
Oh
think?
yeah, I did. I read the Bible when I was 11. I went on to read I then when I was 13, I studied Hinduism. I pretty much dabbled and learned and really dove head first in every single religion, except for with the exception of right now, I'm studying and trying to understand and learn more about Judaism, specifically the Kabbalah. And so what my biggest takeaway from all these religions is that religion to me is sort of like the finger pointing to the sky, not the sky itself. What it's leading us to, what it's guiding us to, what it's emphasizing, and the essence of it is the same. And that's where I found such peace and also a sense of anger, because I got so angry when I realized that we're fighting wars in the name of love. We're fighting each other in the name of love. We're doing these things thinking I'm right, you're right, but it's all in the name of love. Whether you call that love God, energy, science, whatever it be. And so for me, I have to really cool it when I get on sometimes that subject, especially in certain groups of people, because I can go, verse for verse. If you want to throw the Bible around, I can talk a lot of different religions with whatever group of people I'm with. And I realized my point here isn't to be right. It's to understand and to find unity and peace within that. And I think the problem with it all is really that everybody's fighting to be right, because so many people are so scared about their own beliefs and needing to be right because of what would it mean if they weren't. It would totally sometimes
Hmm.
flip everything on its head if all you believed was possibly a perspective of a bigger thing. And if we've viewed somebody else as wrong our entire life and come to find out, wow, we believe the same things, we just use different verbiage or we
Sure.
have, it. And so that's where, so I found peace in it, and I also found anger. And I think I have written about my forgiveness Fridays. Every Friday, I forgive some religion and some experience and some something, because I think that the fighting over it does more harm than just really allowing people to believe what they believe and trust in their path and trust in your own and trust that it will all lead to the same ocean, you know?
Sure. So as far as religion goes, here I don't. When people say that they have a problem with religion, I don't know that they have a problem with religion per se. I think what they have a problem with is what human beings have done with religion from its original conception. So, for example, let's say Jesus Christ preaches to 12, right? And
Mhm.
those 12 take to 24. Those 24 take to 48, and so on and so forth. Now, the probability that that original message gets interpreted properly all the way down the line to what are we at now, billions and billions of people, is negligible. So I think the problem is, I don't know if you agree with this or not so much with religion itself, because really at religion's original message or the original conception, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, whatever, I think is a kind of something like you're saying is it's all essentially almost identical. Would you agree with that, or
I would, I mean, you could take every single religious leader and put them at a dinner table and they would probably all agree with each other, you know?
right?
Um, but there's, with religion, I think that I think my original pullback from it was because I felt so rejected by it, right? And so then I went on to search and find my own meaning. And then when I had the opportunity to find my own and really align with one, I really couldn't, because I felt like I had grown past that one narrow perspective. And I sort of look at it like with healing, right? There's more than one ways to dress a cut. You can sew it, you can cover it with a band-aid, you can, pour oil on it, you can put Neosporin on it, you can do all these things, and it will still give you the right result. Our bodies are the ones doing the healing, and our modality for aiding in that's just a personal choice. And so I've come to the perspective of allowing people to have their path, because what speaks to them and what they feel resonance with is probably right for them, for where they're at in their life and for where their understanding is and their openness and their consciousness level. And my take on something and someone else's take on something, neither one has to be right or wrong, but they can both be right for us if it feels like it adds value to what we're accomplishing and who we're being in our lives. So what was the original question?
Was I guess I suppose the original question was you agree that human beings have sort of taken religion and made it something that might be detestable, whereas the original message is almost pure.
Exactly. I think religion can be beautiful. I think that there's been a lot of shame throughout it. I think there's been a lot of separation from God and man. When in truth, I mean, all you have to do is close your eyes and listen to your own heartbeat, and you realize there's always a connection. It's within you. And I personally don't subscribe to the belief that I have to go sit in four walls to listen to someone else tell me how to love
Hmm.
in my life. But that's just me. For someone else, that might be exactly what they need, having outside guidance and direction. Because sometimes, I mean, it's taken me a long time to build up an inner confidence in my own self acceptance and my own self trust. And it would have been really nice along the way to feel like I had some guidance, but I didn't. So I had to do it alone. But I was never alone, if that makes sense. So I think everyone will find what path is right for them. I just wish we could all stop hating each other in the name of the same goddamn thing.
Right.
You
Okay.
know?
So there's a bit of a falling out with Mormonism. You may have touched on
So
this briefly, but what was the next thing that you gravitated towards?
the next thing I gravitated towards was truthfully, when I look back at it, Christianity just at large. I started going to a non-denominational Christian church, and I felt a lot of comfort in that. My dad also, even though my family wasn't religious per se, would read out of the Bible, or he would give me, because he knew I was so eager to learn, to learn, to learn. So he gave me a little bit more advanced books on energy, on things of maybe sometimes a scientific nature. And then my mom also had a stack of, she had a meditation room in our house, not the first one when I first started experiencing this, but in the one they had built later on. And she had been given gifts of books and different healings and things like that for gifted kids. And I started just reading everything. And I think I really, really found such connection with Christianity and metaphysics. And after discovering that, it really, I mean, if anything, as I learned more about other religions, it really just validated what I had learned through Christianity and the connection of metaphysics. Shoot, sorry, my phone did that just make a noise because it just said my phone's dying?
Not over here. I think you're all right.
Let me grab a charger real quick. 1 second. Sure. I'm still here.
We'll edit this out.
Okay, can you?
Yeah.
Perfect. 1 second. I should have put this on it the very first time. Sorry. No, there we go. Okay, and we're back.
Okay. Where were we? So you gravitate a little bit towards Christianity. You're eager to learn. Then you move on to other things that sort of validates what you had learned before. So I guess let's go step 3, or let's just do this today. I guess how would you describe your spirituality today? Is it, because some people would scoff at the idea of being a jack of all trades, right? I think they would kind of, at some point there's one that stands above the rest, or something, some sort of belief that does.
For sure. And truthfully, I think that once I discovered what I consider to be the truest, for me, the essence of love and the essence of what gave me the deepest peace was probably studying the works of Christ. Now, today, I would say that I wouldn't identify as being Christian, but I do identify as striving every day to live Christ-like, if that makes sense, because to me, they aren't the same. I think one is a social take and a hierarchy of choices and principles, and it's a people-pleasing aspect. And I think the other one is really true through and true, just living Christ-like in every essence, every sense of that meaning, you know? So for me, they're not the same, but that's what I would say I feel the most resonance with.
I think there are people that would say, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you have more extensive knowledge on it than I do, but would people say, is the definition of Christian Christ-like?
Well, and not by people's behavior.
Sure. Okay, all right.
And I wouldn't say, and truthfully, the further in you get into the doctrine of understanding the Bible and even following Jesus Christ and whatnot, the truest sense of being a Christian is really listening to, trusting your own heart and following the path that's led for you, and really, like, you know, narrow is the way, and it's within yourself. And so Christ is a leader, a teacher, an example, and an aid and an angel, and all these things on our pathway, and a healer and someone to call to and embody and whatnot. But as Christ was teaching, we are all connected. We are the Son of God. We are, in a sense, a reflection of, I mean, if we are created in the image of our Creator, we are creators. And so to keep putting something outside of ourselves, I think that's true blasphemy, because we are denying that we are beautiful creations and we have the power to create beautiful things, you know? So
it's very good. I like that. If we created in His image, then we are creators. Right. I might use that on somebody else and pawn it off as my own line.
Cool, got it.
Okay, well, so here's something before because I was going to talk to you about just family life, but I think you alluded to this too, but one of my cousins was talking to me about Mormonism. He said one of the concepts that he likes about it is that what would you say, that it's very localized, where families get together and they all go in the same community, they all go to the same church. And I do like that concept too, because I think the way that
you have a word.
Yes, and I think the way to, if there needs to be a change in a said community or society, I think family is the way to do that. And I think if that concept that Mormonism has, if everybody sort of congregates as you know, families all come together, I
Mhm.
do I like that. But okay, so I talked to you a lot about this, about the idea of or where attraction comes from. And because I'm
Mhm.
not sure, because you could see or we could see a plethora of a number of attractive people out there, but for whatever reason there's that missing link. Now you could say it's chemistry, but we can create chemistry with anybody or what looks like chemistry by way of good conversation or good dialogue or whatever, and still there's that something that's just a little bit off. Now, so I guess here's the question. You did say you got married young, but
Mhm.
what
Young for me, old for Utah.
so so was there anything, I guess I'm trying to figure out, where were you spiritually,
Oh, I
or
was
even
diving
emotionally?
I was diving into some advanced stuff at the time. I was learning about quantum physics. I was really deep into studying at that moment astral projection and twin flames and soul contracts and all these things, right? I was fascinated with it. And I was just learning every day, reading. And I was really knee deep in my own self work. I had started into mirror work and I was really learning how to love myself. And I think that was the key. That was the thing that flipped the switch for me. Relationships up until I had met Ty were a reflection of myself and in all the ways that I wasn't loving myself and all the
Mm,
ways I wasn't showing up as my fullest self. And I think that when you experience a soulmate of types, they don't always have to be a love connection. Sometimes a soulmate is a mirror that reflects back to you who you are in that moment and who you're not being and who you are in your heart. And that's kind of what happened to me. I grew up with some experiences that were very outside of normal, and I had some healing to do, and I had some relearning how to love myself and reconnecting with myself. And I'm so grateful that I took the time to really do that. I mean, I had to get in a relationship with myself first before I could feel worthy of receiving that from somebody else. And so that's what I'd spent my time doing. About that first year before I met Ty, I decided I am in a relationship with myself. And it was
yeah.
amazing because when I changed my frequency and what I chose to vibrate and put out in the world and what I was focused on about myself and in turn about the rest of the world, it all shifted because when you look through the lens and you of your own being, and if you don't like that lens, you don't like who you are, it's sometimes tough to not see criticism or feel it and find fault and feel fault. And as I started to stop criticizing myself, I found it stopped criticizing people around me and experiences and whatnot. And I also dove really deep at that time, looking back into A Course in Miracles, which is an amazing course. It's all about, it's a Christian based course, and it was amazing for me. And yeah, I I got to a place where I was feeling the love from myself every day that I then in turn began to feel from Ty when I met him. And it felt natural and normal and easy and right. And it was a no-brainer, it was a full
Sure.
harder, as I put it.
Well, so I think it's interesting that you say that you were in a relationship with yourself and that you chose to vibrate. Very interesting word usage.
Yes.
However, okay, that's the mere looking back at yourself thing is interesting. I can remember there was a time I was in a relationship and it only lasted, I want to say, about a month and a half. But this girl in particular, for whatever reason, I looked at her. I thought that she was uh, rich. I thought she had like high status because she was living on her own in California, which costs a lot of money. And I, throughout the entirety, which again, about a month and a half of the relationship, I felt so insecure and not enough. But actually, kind of now that you say that, it's easier for me to put it like this: is that mirror was showing me just what I felt about myself. It really had nothing to do with the girl in particular.
Hmm.
So, okay, the mirror. You meet Ty. What is that mirror showing you?
I'm well with Ty. Ty was tough on me in the beginning. I mean, he was very no bullshit about things and he called me out on a lot of things. But I think I was also at the point in my life where I was very ready to receive somebody who was so knew who they were, and he was so grounded in his own life. For instance, I was dating multiple people at that time, and it was Utah dating, where you just go on multiple dates during the day, maybe, you know, kiss a few different people, but that's like the extent of it. Well, dating in Canada, it means like you're exclusive with someone. So we had some moments where it was like, you know, he gave me an ultimatum, if you will, of like, look, if you are ready for this and want to be in a relationship, I am here, but I am not going to do games, right?
Hmm.
And so it was amazing because he reflected to me, even still, I had done all this work, but he was also showing me all the areas that I still had work to do. And but that's the wonderful thing. It's like when I reached a place of a sense of comfort with myself, I was able to attract that with someone else, and from then on out, we've done the work together. I mean, we're still triggers for each other, you know, like we
Hmm.
still will. There will be rub spots or trigger spots or whatever you want to call them, but we now kind of look at it like, wow, this is another play, this is another layer to shed, this is another release of some negative stuff. This is, you just get deeper into the relationship, and you get further and further and further into yourself if you're conscious of it, and to really holding the space for your partner to grow into themselves. And it's beautiful because, I mean, think about it, like when I met Ty, that was Ty pre Ty the dad, Ty the hockey coach, Ty the different aspects of him. I got to meet who he was becoming as we were together, which was exciting. Like when we first had Gracie, I didn't know who Ty the father was, but it was like you get to fall in love with these people that you're in your life all over again as you grow and change into becoming more and more of who you are. So I think yeah, going back to that, Ty was definitely a mirror for me, but I liked more what I was being reflected back to. I liked myself more. So it was a much gentler, more loving experience. And I mean, gosh, I could talk about him all day. He was a blessing for me for sure.
So it does seem, Lex, that has to happen first. That sort of contentment within yourself has to happen first before there's any sort of successful relationship. But okay, so here's something I think you touched on. Something I heard was, I think people sometimes they like to get in relationships because they can extract something from somebody else. So let's say there's something, whatever, there's some sort of emptiness inside. Well, okay, well, here's this person, I can extract that from them, and then I'll feel whole. And lo and behold, the relationship fails because it's not work that they did. Well, for
Well, I think
generally,
that's also built on a false premise, because what can you truly extract from someone else? You know, they can evoke something that causes your own internal reaction. And
sure.
there again, it comes back to the whole wow, even the feelings of love that you receive from someone else, someone can love you so much, but if you don't have that feeling within your own being, you won't even register the feelings of love or adoration or whatnot. So even an experience where you're extracting something from someone, you can't receive it unless you're allowing yourself to embody and feel and become that emotion. And so yeah, I think people can be they can they can be a jumping point for that experience. They can be what's the word I'm looking for, a catalyst.
Hmm.
But ultimately, even feelings of, same thing with a job or all sorts of stuff, this, it's an existential reality that ultimately excites our own inner reality, and it prompts what's already there. So if something can evoke that feeling within you, you can capitalize on that feeling and tap into that and create that within your own self anytime you want to. It's just a matter of a being at peace with yourself and allowing yourself to do that, and then you can start creating emotions from within, and then yes, generating it outward so people can feel that, but they ultimately, it sparks their own feeling within themselves.
Mm.
So I do think love is a great spark awakener for sure.
Yeah, so
But you
so
got to
uh,
find it within.
I don't want to speak broadly. Generally speaking, I think that when the relationship is based on extracting something from somebody else, that it seems to be only temporary, whether that's 6 months, year, whatever. I think typically speaking, it doesn't transcend into some sort of foreverhood, but because that another person, I think you touched on this, is that you can't another person can't make you whole. One of the things I heard was, I'm not a half of a life where I need another half of a life to find that completion. I'm a
Mhm.
whole life right now. And so that, I think that that relationship with yourself, as you spoke about, has to come first. Now, I think the most successful relationships, and this is something that you've also said throughout this show, is that where the most successful relationships are, I have something that I can share with somebody,
Mhm.
and that person has something that they can share with me. So
Yeah.
Ty, obviously, you mentioned that you had something to share with you. What do you think? What did Ty see looking at that reflective mirror?
Well, I can't speak for him, but my feeling looking back is that I think we both saw through some of the exterior of who each other was presenting and being, and we kind of really found each other on a deeper level. And I think that Ty, based on his own upbringing, I think from me, he probably felt like maybe for the first time, he himself felt like maybe he was enough, and that who he was, not what he could offer, not what he could provide, not what how much he could protect,
Hmm.
but who he was as a person was enough. And that I saw that, and I saw it very clearly. And that's how I felt with him. I felt like I was seen. And that was a really beautiful feeling for me. And with the giving and sharing of things, it's not that we can't help other people feel better and we can't give to people our joy and share positive emotions. We definitely can. I still believe that it sparks their own, which they feel within themselves. But I kind of look at people like puzzle pieces. We are whole, we're whole pieces ourselves, but we find these pairs in our life, at least how I look at it, that really add to a bigger picture. And it doesn't take away from who you are as your own piece of that puzzle. Like, that's who you are, and you embody that. You can't ever be half of that or a part of it or a piece of it. It's who you are. But we're connected, and we're connected to something greater. And it's cool because a puzzle piece is kind of a perfect example. You have your direct links, but then they make a bigger picture and they've got their direct links, and so forth and so forth. And pretty soon you realize this gorgeous picture, we were just a piece of it, and yet without that piece it can't be whole. So it's like you realize how much you matter and also how much everything matters together. So it's kind of cool.
Hmm. Well, that's very good, Lex. Well, so we've approached the hour mark here. I don't want to keep you too long. I know we just said it was about 45 to an hour. So okay, we'll close the show like this. Mother's Day Mayhem, the finale, is coming
Mhm.
up hopefully this Saturday.
Yeah.
Um, obviously amazing singer songwriter. Is there? I
Mhm.
wanted to close the show like this. Is there anything that, not necessarily advice, because I don't know that people want advice. Here's something I read that I thought was great. Advice. Well, obviously people like to give advice and they don't like to take advice. The reason I
Mhm.
like to give advice is because now I'm in a position of intellectual superiority, because after all, this person is coming to me with their stupid problem that they can't figure out. So of course I like to give advice. But uh is there a lesson that you've learned
Oh,
working your
I've
way
learned.
through the so let's say
Yeah.
a primary lesson that you've learned working your way through the music industry that you like to pass along to somebody who has not learned that yet?
Oh, we're talking about the industry, not the Mother's Day Mayhem Hospital thing.
The music,
Which one?
yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, it's funny you say advice because that's actually a peeve of mine. I hardly use that word because for me, it's adding vice to a situation. For me, it feels like critical input.
Yeah.
So I love the term sharing wisdom. If people want to share their wisdom with me, I totally welcome it. But when my family members are like, "Can I give you some advice?" I'm like, "No, don't add any vice to my life. No." Um, so so really quick recap. A takeaway or like a lesson or some wisdom I've personally learned through the music industry.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Looking back, I started so young and I morphed who I was and what I sang and what I sounded like and what I wrote according to who the next big thing was and who could get me to where I really wanted to go with my music. And I changed myself. I was not true to myself because I thought that the outside world would. It was like I kept being told, once you get in the elevator, you can go up and down the floors and you can really then do what you want. But the problem with that for me was that the more I changed, the more I changed, the more I changed, and I so lost a sense of myself that my music felt disconnected. I look back, I listen to it, and I'm like, wow, the stuff that actually moved the meter for me is even my very first hits. Those were raw, authentic songs that I was genuinely writing from my own life experience that were just me.
Mm.
And I'm relearned that, and I'm learning that now where I'm at in my life too. It's that if I like something, if I love something, I believe in it, I've got to create because it's what I love and it's a gift for my own life and in hopes that it can be a gift for someone else's life. And so my ultimate wisdom, I guess, for myself and anyone who's listening, who's in this field, is to really, really value your own opinion and to really, really value your own likes and wants, because you are also the consumer of things. You are also someone who deserves to heal from things. You are also someone who deserves to be inspired and empowered by something. And if it doesn't connect with you first, whether it be music or, a prototype or a piece of merchandise, if you don't resonate with it, trust your instincts and trust that it's really got to hit home for you first before other people can connect with it. So that's what I would say.
Very good, Lex. Well, I thank you for joining me today. Do you want to plug your social media before we get out of here?
Sure. That's my handle, right? For Instagram. Just Alexa Shea Music. That's it, I think. At
Okay.
Alexa Shea Music.
Yeah.
Alexa like the Amazon, Shea like shea butter and music. There you go.
Okay, one last question. So I like some of your songs on Spotify, so they would come up on my little playlist. But now when I shuffle them, they just skip right past it. Are you off Spotify now?
I don't think so. I'll check. I think I'm still on there. In fact, I created an album with my sister called Falk about 7-8 years ago, and I just put that back on. It's republishing itself or posting, I guess, at the end of this month, and it might be doing it as my whole catalog. So I should have everything back up there and on it, but I will look into that. Should all be there.
Okay, very good, Lex. Well, again, thank you for joining me, and I hope to talk to you soon. Hopefully we do this again.
Thanks for having me. This is fun. Okay, see you.